we've got a fantastic guest today, Craig Weeks.
I tell everybody, if you can work with your son or your dad at any opportunity, or your daughter, what a special moment that is. We had a record year the first year we were fully in charge, me and my team. But I couldn't shake this feeling of imposter syndrome. You know, this isn't a job to me. I love my job. If I could talk to Craig Weeks 14, he wouldn't believe what I'm telling him. Obviously, I got a young family, and I was stood there thinking, I could be in jail for Christmas here. You know, I've been the person that's been belittled. I've been the person that's been blamed for everything. I would never let that happen to my team.
What was it that you changed? What was the decision you made in your mind?
One of my biggest drivers is family. I want to do my dad proud, my family proud. So I phoned him up and we were both crying on the phone. And
we always ask our guests on this podcast the same final question. What their biggest piece of advice would be that they would share. What would you say yours is?
I would say,
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Uncommon Sense. I'm really pleased to say that we've got a fantastic guest today, Craig Weeks, who is the General Manager at JCB Transmissions here in Wrexham. So those of you who are watching us on our YouTube channel will see that we've left the Uncommon Practice HQ and we've come to JCB here in Wrexham on the industrial estate. It's brilliant to be here. It's great that Craig's going to be on our podcast. I'm really interested to talk to Craig about his inspirational journey, and it really is inspirational, to the top here in Wrexham, to understand how that happened. And I'm also really looking forward to talking to Craig about his views on leadership, culture, and values. So it's going to be a really interesting conversation. Thanks so much for joining us, Craig, on
You're
Uncommon
welcome.
Sense. So where I'd really like to start, if it's okay, is to understand a bit more about how you became the general manager at JCB, just a little bit about your background, and we've spoken before about your sort of inspirational journey to the top. So it'd be really great to get to understand that story.
coming into JCB, first of all, I was at school. Didn't like school so much, struggled with school. Went to uni, started on a Cisco systems course. Didn't really like that either, so I wasn't cut out for that at the moment. But my dad worked here, so me and my brother got invited to come for an interview. My brother just come out of the army, a Royal Engineer, so I didn't think I'd have a chance. So we both come in, both got interviewed, both went through an aptitude test. And we're at home one day and we had a phone call. I answered the phone. Hello, it's JCB. Yeah. Who is this? Craig. Hi, Craig. It's JCB. I'd like to offer you the job. So, oh, okay. I said, what about my brother? Well, which one's your brother? Mark. So I was, oh, yeah, no, unfortunately, he hasn't been successful. So I'm not sure to this day if they got the right person. I think it was by luck or by chance, whatever way, it ended up being me coming into the business. And then as a temporary worker, started on the assembly line, went into the training school for 2 weeks, went into axles, slowly progressed through the business into gearbox test, and then had a bit of a change in life, if you like. Young man going about Wrexham, got into a bit of trouble with a friend of mine, ended up nearly going to jail, which was a moment for me where it made me set up and think. Whereas, you know, this judge, if I could find him today, I'd shake his hand, told us to go away and he would see us again in a week's time when he reviewed all the evidence and such. And that really put me into a thought process of what do I want from my life. Having to see what it's like inside a prison, having seen that environment. And obviously he let us go, if you like, with a warning. And from that moment on, I wanted to change my life. So I went along to be a team leader at first, which didn't go down too well with my family because they're all shop floor, quite militant, comes from the colonies, I suppose, very unionised. So yeah, my dad says like having a policeman in the family. So I started on this journey as a team leader. You lost all your friends because nobody wanted to be friends with a team leader. So I just kept my head down, kept practicing, progressing through the business, learning what I needed to learn. And I suppose one of the first true leaders in the business world come into my life was Stuart Hughes, who was a director at the time, coming to Wrexham. He was from backhaul loaders at the time. His background was from South Wales with Sony, different lens on the world compared to JCB. And he seen something in me that he liked, and he asked me to become a supervisor, a group leader, that's what they're called now. So yeah, I jumped at the chance. And some of the things he taught me about leadership, how to manage people, I still use to this day. He's still quite high up in my estimation as one of the best leaders I've ever worked with. So I've got a lot to thank him for that. Mm-hmm. And so I become a supervisor then, and that was a bit easier with my work colleagues because you were staff then, you weren't a team leader who has to run with the hare and the hounds. So that started my journey as a staff person. Then I was asked to leave Gearbox to go and join the axle team across the road. Again, a new challenge. I built axles all my life, but to manage a team of people I didn't even know. So start again, if you like. So that was a good lesson for me to learn. So I went on to axles. I was a group leader for 2 or 3 years. A manager's job came up in maintenance. I applied for that just to go through the process, to understand the process. Didn't really want the job, if I'm honest, but I thought I'll learn the process. Was unsuccessful, which was fine. And then a position come for a manager's job for axle assembly, which obviously I jumped at the chance, and I was successful. So I became axle manager. I think that was about 2010. And then just learning a different aspect of the role. It was tough. Manning issues, day-to-day normal stuff. But I was a manager then. I wasn't a leader whatsoever. And you just got through the grind every day. And then I had a bit of a situation with a bad leader in the business, you'd say, mm-hmm. Which was tough to work under. So you can say you learn a lot more under a bad leader sometimes, or learn not to. Anyway, I had to go through the process of taking him to task, and HR was involved. And the good thing that came out of it was I was put onto a senior management development course. And for me, this was a game changer. Didn't know it at the time. This was an absolute game changer. I was sent down to Roster with a team of people similar to me and similar roles to me. And put on a course, and the lady was called Liz Dowd, who was the tutor who JCB brought in to teach us. And yeah, she changed my world. I remember speaking to her at induction day, and then she invited us back down for a one-to-one interview. And we were in a little room, one-to-one, and she discussed all issues, what problems I had. And she just said, it's not you, it's JCB, it's big business. You can't take everything on your own shoulders. It's how can you improve it? How do you look at it differently? Stop micromanaging, let your team grow, develop themselves. And I honestly left that little cloakroom a different man, like the world had been lifted off my shoulders. I still text her, message her to this day. So yeah, she was the first step in me becoming a leader, and just looked on everything differently then, rather than messaging, emailing, texting people all hours of the night. Just let them do their job. And then the next morning, if it went wrong, we'd come in, reevaluate it, and learn from it. And I slowly pulled away from that manager's role to a leader role. And then improving your listening skills. Be careful what shadow you cast, when you're saying things in front of people. Because when you're a leader or a manager in the business, your team will mimic you at some point. So whatever language you use and behaviour you put out there, and they will replicate it. It's human nature. Mm-hmm. One of my proudest moments was, I was obsessed with casting this right shadow in the early days. And when I walked past the team leader board and I heard the team leader saying the same things I was speaking in the morning, my hair stuck up at the back of my neck, and I think that's what drove me. And, a colleague of mine here had an issue at home, and I just listened to him for an hour, and they sent me a message the next day saying, thank you for listening to me. You're the first person who's ever listened to me. And that was one of the skills I learned as well, is to listen, not just to be there, listen. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was the first big step for me in the journey of leadership.
I mean, I knew it was going to be an interesting story, and it is. Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Just to go sort of right back, you mentioned you had a sort of sliding doors moment early on in your career, and things could have gone one way or the other. Now, anyone who's listening to this who might have, any youngsters who might be listening to this, or anyone who's early on in their career, what was the thing you took away from that? You said you made the conscious decision, right, I'm going to change. What was it that you changed? What was the decision you made in your mind?
For me, it was one of my biggest drivers, family. I want to do my dad proud, my family proud. So that was a thing of letting my family down. That was one of the big things. I thought, if I get into trouble here and go down the wrong route, I'm going to make my family be, upset, obviously. So that was a big driver for me. And from that moment on, I used that to power me on. I want to make people happy and proud of me, not disappointed.
And so what was it that changed in you after that? What was the difference?
It's hard to put down, really. It was a determination. It's hard to put into words, but it was just that drive to progress, to really progress. When I went in for the team leader role, there was a guy who's been doing the job a lot longer than me, and I thought, I'm never going to get this. And lo and behold, I got the role. That was the first thing, was wow, I've got it. Like I said to you before, I didn't like school, didn't enjoy school. Then I started on this journey of learning, and it just opened so many doors. I've become a sponge. And I was in that senior management development course. I was with other people, and I was thinking, why aren't you engaged? This lit a fire inside of me, and I can't, from me, life for me, with the right time, right people, right person, whatever it was, it just lit a fire in me. And I just started on the audiobooks, started self-learning, and I just couldn't contain myself.
It's just so interesting, this, because we've done several episodes of this podcast now, and I think the same themes keep coming up in every episode, so I think there could be a book after this. But what's really interesting, there's several things that you've said, and we're talking about education. We've been fortunate enough to interview some great business leaders on this podcast, and this similar theme of not being great in education, and yet sort of coming out of it and then rising to the top. Do you think that that's because, obviously education is important. Neither of us are saying that it's not. But
I'm catching up. So if you can do it early, all the better.
Okay.
I'm catching up.
Okay, but do you think that the fact that do you think it hindered you those early days, struggling in education, or not? So,
just so you're talking, I was thinking, because I was preempting the question you were going to ask then. I genuinely think it gives you a different skill. So if you're not as intelligent as other people or whatever growing up, or don't have the opportunities, I think you learn other skills to get you through life. So whether that's a personality, whether that's whatever that may be, is a different skill to get you through what you need to do. I think that gives you a different basis, and then you build from that with your education after. So whether that gave me a skill set of a good personality, whatever it is, a good with my hands or my head, building a team, whatever that skill may be, or being able to talk to people, involve people, learn off people, whatever that skill was, it gave me the right footings to excel once I started learning.
Oh, I love that, Craig. That's a brilliant answer. So going back again to your sort of journey through the ranks, if you like, you mentioned two leaders, one who inspired you significantly and one which wasn't such a good experience, if you like. So what was it about, so the first question, you can probably guess on the second one would be, what was it about the positive leader that you really looked up to? And then, what, conversely, because there will be lots of business leaders out there, and hopefully this will be useful to them, is, what was it about a leader perhaps that you weren't so, enamored with? That
I think from the first leader that was the first person I come across that had a different lens on the world to JCB. So he come from outside of JCB. And just the little things that he taught me about man management. At the end of the day, everything's about people. Mm-hmm. And from the bad leader, on reflection now, some of the great lessons I learned from him on reflection when I've grown as a leader. Mm-hmm. Again, he had a different lens in the world, and you can learn something off everybody, And I think I've learned some of my big journey leap forwards, if you like, off a bad leader.
Yeah.
And you take the good and the bad from everybody, and what you do is you don't. And again, going back to that base skill, is that what I learned to do when I wasn't enjoying education? I learned them skills to pull off people, and you make your own skill. I don't know, but
no, it's really, really interesting. I think you've also touched on the same thing a few times, which is, you know, and I don't want to put words into your mouth, but it seems to me that your view as a leader there, you said when you became leader, you stopped managing people, you empowered people. Is that, would you say, is one of the secrets to your success as a leader?
So, you know, I remember one instance where I was messaging all night, got a pain plant he was having issues with, and, you know, I'd done my second course on the SMDP, and I said about, you know, what's your delegation skills? Like, very good. You know, talk me through your delegation skills. I wasn't delegating at all. I was micromanaging. But in my view, it was delegation. No, I was turning people into robots. You know, I want you to do X, Y, and Z, X, Y, and Z, X, Y, and Z. People are people, you know, and I had a phone call that night. I was away on a course, pain plants down, itching to reply, didn't reply.
Okay.
Didn't reply. 3 phone calls later, didn't answer. I was in a hotel, I was down Staffordshire, I was pulling my hair out just to know what's happened. So I get up in the morning and the sprinkler system had gone off in the pain plants, and they resolved it. Issues with the customer had been resolved, and I didn't do a thing. And that was one of the, again, key moments of going, there's something in this. There's something in this, and people can manage. The people are very good. But if you keep putting your foot on people and telling them what to do, they're just going to wait for instruction. And if I want a robot, I'll buy a robot.
Yeah, it's. I suppose that was another sort of enlightenment moment for you there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That, going through that leap of faith of don't answer it, when you're used to answering it. But what was the driver for that was that leadership team was so aggressive, so wanted to know the ins and outs of things, so oppressive. So you've got to take that away. You've got to turn it into a garden and let people grow. You know, just sprinkle a bit of water on them, a bit of food, and let them grow. That's get your foot off the top of their heads.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thanks, Craig. I also want to go back a little bit again to your journey to the top, because it's such a good story, and hopefully, you know, people listening to this will take a lot from it. You mentioned that you joined the business. Your father was working in the business. And then all of a sudden, as you said, you were sort of promoted.
Yeah, lift sharing home wasn't good.
Okay, tell me a bit more about that.
So obviously my dad was advising me not to do it, and X, Y, what my dad's best knowledge, obviously. And then I got the role, and then obviously I was still living in a home, so going home was a bit difficult. Then you become your dad's boss, which again is a laughing point, but sometimes a bit awkward. You know, looking back on it, having the opportunity, because I worked with my dad as well, having that opportunity to spend that time and see my dad in that environment. You know, I tell everybody, if you can work with your son or your dad at any opportunity, or your daughter, what a special moment that is. I reflect on it now and think, what a time of my life I got to spend seeing my dad have fun, be a man, not a dad. Joking with his mates, having fun, and that side a lot of people don't see of their parents. So yeah, special time. But when I was in that transition, it was hard. And you know, I come back after the pandemic, and we'll go into, I suppose, a bit detail after, but I was starting to progress up and take more ownership of the business. And when I got offered the operations job, that was emotional. You know, phoning my dad up and saying, they've offered me operations manager. You know, becoming a manager was beyond my wildest dreams, but to be asked to be operations manager at JCB, so I phoned him up, and we were both crying on the phone, and, you know, coming to work, had a bit of a hug on the stairs outside, it's going to push him out. But special moment. And he said, I'm glad you didn't listen to me. I'm glad you didn't listen to me. But yeah, special moment.
Oh, that's a brilliant story. Yeah, you got me going as well, to be honest, Craig. So thinking about then, you were becoming the leader, and you had to get these people that you've been working with on the shop floor, is that the sort of, I don't know if that's the right language, but the people you've been working with in the factory, if you like. And all of a sudden, Craig is now a leader, or is a manager on the way to leadership. How did you get those people to follow you?
You got to deliver. You got to deliver. Talk is cheap. For me, it was all about showing people, delivering, doing what you say you're going to do. Empathy is a big one. I'm from the shop floor. That's again is another big part of my toolkit. Is I know what they're going through. I know what the shop floor have to do. I know that a guy who's got a bad tool, a 10mm tool, that he doesn't fit the spanner correctly and it slips off every time he does that process. In his world, that's everything. Someone sat in this office, who's never been on the shop floor, think, what's he moaning about? It's only a spanner. That is everything in their world. So it's that empathy. A prime example, when we had the pandemic and we were coming back and the like guys on the shop floor had to wear masks, a visor 3 foot apart and all that tough stuff, and it was hot outside. I was looking at people in the office with air-conditioned offices with no masks on and stuff. I thought, this is not right. So I made all the staff wear masks, even if they're in an office on their own, just because we're part of it. We're all in this together. It's not. I don't want to create that them and us. You can't get away completely from it because it's different worlds. As in, they haven't got a phone at the end of their station, or they can't phone their wife up any time like most people here can. They can't go to the stationery cupboard to get a pen when they want. So they have to go to stores and sign for it. You can't get away from it completely, but every way possible, you've got to make this one team. And I thought, it's unfair on these guys having to be on the shop floor, having to wear this PPE and wear it in an air-conditioned office. So obviously it wasn't liked by the staff team at the time, but it was well recognised.
And I'm guessing it's almost like a superpower, as you say, having that empathy, having been there and done it yourself.
Been there, done it.
And it's interesting because I think some companies have different approaches to leadership, maybe graduate programs or helicoptering people in, to the leadership roles. But JCB have obviously taken a different approach with you, seeing that you're worked in the factory and you, like as you say, you understand their needs, their problems, their worldviews, everything that they're going through. Like you say, it might just be a spanner and someone in head office might say, what are they complaining about?
And it works both ways as well, because as I'm learning, growing, developing, stuff I know now that would benefit me if I was on the shop floor, I would reverse it. So I go down there and educate the shop floor as best I can. Communication was a big thing. When you're on shifts and you're coming in on a Saturday night, your first shift, there's nobody here to communicate to them. So we put up the communication boards. I don't know if you've seen them when you come in. So it's a brief outline of what's happening in the business, investments, orders, and they get a suggestion box. So they put a little slip in to ask for a suggestion or a question. And every month we review it as a committee with the GMB as well. And we reply to them as best we can. And anyone's put a good suggestion in, we reward what we can, or any learning developments. And they're 2 years old now, and they're still being heavily used. We get pictures of willies and boobs sometimes, but that's part of the course. But overall, that communication, again, is that engagement, connecting the shop floor to the office and to the business. Because, 70-80% of my work for us on the shop floor. I used to get annoyed when the exec would fly in, come in the office and fly out. First thing I do now is take them on the shop floor, come and meet your people. And you know what? They love it.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I'm trying to remember exactly where it comes from. It might be lean manufacturing or something, but they call it the Gemba walks, I think they call it. And the Gemba meaning sort of the place where stuff happens, so like the workshop and I think one of the point they're making is directors need to get out of their boardrooms or get out of their offices. You've got a lovely office, but you get out of the office and then go to the shop floor where the stuff happens, because
very rarely. Okay. Maybe that's where my comfort zone is, though. I'm used to being on the shop floor, so I'm happier there. I suppose if you get helicoptered in, you don't know people, don't know the process. Your safe zone's here.
You might know the theory, I guess, as well. You've done all the theory of leadership, but you've actually sort of lived it, I suppose. Is that right? Really interesting. You said something which I loved. I've actually not heard the phrase before, casting the shadow or casting the right shadow, which is great. I took from that, you set the tone. Is that sort of what you meant? Would you mind elaborating on that a bit more?
So it's the language you use. So first thing I learned when I was off that development program, I come back, it's all about communication, education. So I started up the biscuit meeting. So, I got the team leaders in, because there's no point just having your managers in. You need the team in. You need to be the coalface. So you get all the team leaders in, round a table similar to this, and I'd bring a pack of biscuits in, we'd have a cup of tea. It'd be 10 o'clock every morning. Like, boys, what's going on? I'm saying boys because we didn't have any females on the shop floor then, but we'll come on to that later.
Okay.
Yeah, so we just get around the table, and it wouldn't be a structured meeting. Right, what's going on? Any issues on your line? I'll feedback what I've got from my ops meeting in the morning, and it's just that open dialect and communication and speaking the right language, and then they'll go out there and speak that language as well, because it's human nature. You're going to, well, what's Craig said? And he'll interpret it his own way, but there'll be a similar language. And like I say, when I walked past that team leader board and heard that team leader saying them words that I spoke that morning, that feeling, there's no better feeling for me than that you've impacted somebody's life. You're coaching, mentoring, they're growing as well. They're becoming a leader because they feel elevated, that they've got this information, and they're sharing it. So I think it's an amazing thing to have, and it's the big thing that shocked me was, as I kept doing these little things, instrumental gains, whatever you want to call them, things were getting easier. My job was getting easier. I was talking more, doing less work, but productivity was going up. The good feeling was going up. Absenteeism was going down. Everything was ticking every box. I was thinking, there's no magic spell here. I'm just talking to my people, communicating, guiding, nudging, coaching, mentoring. It's how rocket science.
Why do you think it was different before? What do you think's changed to make, and obviously it's you've made a massive difference, but what was traditionally, why was it not like that?
There was no shop floor engagement, in my view. I'm all about the community as well, because I'm promoting JCB as a business in the community. Going to the schools, talking to the schools, talking to yourself, some business meetings, getting the council involved, started a leadership alliance up, because it's all about community, sharing best practices. We played rugby last week, that's where I got these scars from. So it was Wrexham against Transmissions, and we played football, 2 football teams, axles versus gearboxes. And the biggest thing I took from that, it was for a great cause. But the biggest thing I got from when we went to the pub after for some food and that, there was nearly 300 people in there. Family, kids running around. That to me is everything. That to me is when you keep the person here for life.
Okay.
I've been here 28 years now. When I was on the shop floor, we used to have lots of fun. Football teams, going out to have a few drinks together. That died. It went away, and I don't know if it was maybe the people weren't invested in the area because I'm a local lad. I don't know what it was, but just that shop floor engagements, because like I say, 78% was a shop floor, making their world good, making them happy and more productive. And that's all this has come from. There's no magic potion, it's just involvement, people, making sure your people are good.
No, it's really, really interesting. I also, another key theme that seems to come through in a lot of these interviews, and I'd be interested to get your thoughts on this, is this idea of imposter syndrome. So, I don't need to tell you, but just for anyone who's listening, it's this idea that, you are now a leader, but you don't feel like you deserve to be there almost.
Still waiting for somebody to come and drag me out of the office.
So I take that then from you that maybe is something you face or have
Absolutely.
thought. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
it's one of my biggest fears.
Is that someone's going to come and drag you out of the office?
Yeah, someone's going to pick the phone and say, you had your fun, come on, out you go.
Okay.
And this is amazing, because I've listened to audiobooks, as you know, and learned about imposter syndrome. And I got a great coach, Karen Dean, who told me how to deal with it. And it's an amazing thing. So because of my background, where I come from, and you've always had, people in this office, real clever people, come through the right tracks, if you like, the normal tracks. You always put them on a pedestal, and you always gauge yourself against them. So when I was in here, I was thinking, how do I know if I'm a good leader? So one key thing I looked at was attrition. How many people are we losing? So when I first took over, we were losing about 12 a month. It's coming from the pandemic, trying to get the right people in, people leaving the business, coming in 3 or 4 weeks. You'd have to retrain them, cost a lot of money, don't get the right skills. So once we started the shop floor engagements, the birthday meetings, the Women's Alliance, the communication boards, the football, all this stuff, all of a sudden, nobody's leaving the business. I asked the lady who looks after the attrition side of it, and she was like, no, we haven't lost anybody for the last 3 months. Then I think with over the 12 months, the last 12 months, I think we lost about 6 or 7 people, but that was through them not doing their job correctly, not because people were leaving the business. So that was a tick in the box for me, where we're on the right tracks here. And then this imposter syndrome kept coming. waiting for that phone call, waiting for are we doing it right? We had a record year the first year we were fully in charge, me and my team. Record year of transmissions, fantastic. Less people, record year. Pat on the back, great stuff. But I couldn't shake this feeling of imposter syndrome. So when I had a session with my coach, I was like, I can't shake this. And she took me through a tool and a process. I don't want to say because it's a tool and process. And it basically turns out that it's a superpower. It's a superpower in a way of I'll never settle. So I've always got this thing on behind me thinking someone's going to come and get me. I need to keep evolving. I need to keep improving. There's always somebody better than you out there. So this imposter syndrome I now see as a superpower. So every night I'll wake up thinking of something different I can do. Every morning I'll think of what else we can do differently. I'll never settle. I'll never settle for what we got. I'll never be content. So I've turned that from a fear into a superpower now, and it's working.
No, that's the first time I've ever heard that, and yeah, that's quite profound actually. And I guess it just means that, and I suppose conversely to that, if you didn't have an element of imposter syndrome as a leader, maybe it means you're a bit too comfortable, would you say?
Exactly that. So, learning financial side of the business, which I've never been involved in, which I'm loving, budgeting, P&L, all this great stuff. I'm growing myself as a person. Sometimes you can feel sick when you go into meetings because you're outside your comfort zone, but I know that's what I need to be. Mm-hmm. If I'm going into that meeting, I know everything. I don't ever want to be that person. Mm-hmm. So I either want to be feeling sick because I'm out of comfort zone, or I want this imposter syndrome around me. Mm-hmm. So with them two tool sets, I don't even want to retire, if I'm honest with you. This isn't a job to me. I love my job. I love coming to work, developing people, growing the business, pushing myself, growing myself. If I could talk to Craig Weeks 14, he wouldn't believe what I'm telling him. And so I'm using it as a superpower, like I'm saying. It's always push yourself. And imposter syndrome is a bad feeling. Until I learn to control it, it's overwhelming sometimes. Right. And I can understand why it can break some people. But you need to flip it on its head. Like my life coach said, use it as a superpower because you'll never be content. You'll always think someone's going to come and get you, so you'll always push yourself.
Did you ever need then I'm just interested to understand with this imposter syndrome, this is the final question on this, but I'm interested to understand, did your bosses, because obviously you've got people, I suppose, even higher up, did they ever help you to overcome that?
No, they don't don't think I've ever told them about it.
Okay.
Got some great people. Special thanks to Martin, the CEO of the business. When I've been in trouble here, and when I first took over, one of the first days I took over, the paint plant was down again, stopping every business. You're thinking, oh my God, the last general manager's left. I'm the first man in charge, and I've stopped every business unit in the UK. So obviously my boss phones me up and thinking, oh God, this is it, and he said to me then, listen, you're not on trial. You're the best man for the job. You'll get through this, you'll fix it, and you'll be a better person for it. Mm-hmm. Give me a ring in 2 hours, see how you're getting on. For me, that's a leader. Mm-hmm. When you have all these tales about they're going to do this to you, and when it gets down to Staffordshire, they're going to come up here and sort you all out. Mm-hmm. Far from it. Every person I have had to deal with have been so supportive. Don't get me wrong, if you do it wrong too many times, you're going to get a bollock and whatever. But, that from that instance there, I just thought, what a leader. Mm-hmm. And then when you got them people in charge of you, you can only be a better leader. Mm-hmm. You can only pass that down. So again, casting the shadow. He casted the shadow to me, and that's going to cast even further through me. Yeah,
absolutely love it. And that leads really neatly on to sort of what I want to talk about next, because when you and I first met a few months ago, we were talking about the book Legacy by James Kerr. Yeah. We both read it, and we both loved the book. And if anyone's not read it, I would say definitely.
Absolutely.
It's a big recommend from us. Yeah. But I come into your office, and for those who can't see, there's a big yellow sign, and it says in there's a big yellow sign, and in black writing it says, "We are creating a culture to deliver excellence," and I love that. Yeah. And I think a lot of business leaders who smaller businesses perhaps who are listening to this might think, oh, here we go, culture, values, behaviors, here's all of that crap again. Yeah. Which I know is like the complete opposite of what you think. So I'd really like to dig into this a little bit more. So I'm interested to understand, clearly culture is important to you. So could you talk to us a bit about sort of what you've been trying to do?
Yeah, so it's back to them hard yards, if you like. It's demonstrating what you're doing. You're not just talking. Create a culture that's demonstrating. You know, you can go into meetings, you know, like you say, you hear people talk about culture and this, that, and the other. You come from there thinking, yeah, whatever. You know, I invite anybody to come here and feel this culture change. I know people leave here and tell me they feel a difference. And again, to grow myself, to change that culture, I reached out to another senior manager in the business, Ian Sayers, because he's got a completely different lens on the world to me. You know, he's service, warranty, you know, he's got a great background himself, you know, doing the hard yards, working on combine harvester stuff. So I reached out to him, would he mentor me for 12 months? And on our second session, he said, what is Craig Weeks' brand? When I come up to Wrexham, what am I going to feel? What am I going to see different? Because you have to be different. And that got me. And I had to think about it for days and days. And at the time, it was James Kerr. I was going through that book, and I was lucky enough to have him on a Teams call. It wasn't just me; it was a few hundred people. And he was talking about culture and how they deliver excellence. And it's all about the shirt with New Zealand. You respect the shirts, and it's all about your ancestors. You know, we do the haka. They're calling up their ancestors to stand alongside them to fight anybody. I thought, wow, that's just tingling. I couldn't get this culture thing on my head. So I got my leadership team in this office. I said, what's our culture? What's our brand? What are we saying? Well, when we go out there, everyone knows what we're about. And we come up with that. I think that actually describes what we're about here. We're creating a culture to deliver excellence. And that excellence can be anything. That's in leadership, quality, anything. Because I didn't want to put it pigeonhole it, because leadership isn't pigeonholed. And that's the start. It was really getting into the culture side now, the behavioural control. We just started a 5S project now, because we've had such a turnover of people the last 2 years because of the pandemic. You know, all our old skilled people have gone. So we've got a new breed of people here now, which we're having to go back to grassroots and develop that culture. You'll see when I walk around later, it's all about how the shop floor looks, how the floor looks, how the walkway's clean, how the toilet's clean. That's where culture starts. Forget the bolts, forget the nuts. You start on the shop floor. How does it look? How does it feel? When you walk up to my factory, does it look good? Does outside the factory look clean and brushed up? Because that's where it starts. That's where culture starts. And then the good stuff comes after, once you get the basics right.
I mean, a brilliant answer. You know, again, it reminds me a bit, I'm thinking about similar things I've heard before that I don't know if you've heard of this, Craig, this idea of the broken windows theory. I don't know if you've heard about this. So this was going back into sort of the 90s in New York, 80s, 90s. New York was not a nice place to be. And then Giuliani took over. I know he's sort of like damaged his reputation a bit recently. But you know, in the 80s, 90s, I think he became sort of the mayor or whatever. And his whole thing was, he called it the broken windows theory, which was this idea that we cannot change anything until the signals that people see around them are right. You know, if we can't go around and crime was high and all this stuff, and people were saying, oh, we just need more policemen on the streets, we just need to, you know, stamp down on it. And I think his thing was, until we create a smarter environment where we don't have like broken windows or where we don't have graffiti and stuff on the walls, that's the signal and creates the environment of the culture that we want. And it strikes me that that's sort of what you're saying here at JCB.
Would you drop a crisp wrapper inside a church? No. Would you drop it on a dirty street? Yeah, you probably would, because that's the standard. You raise the standard by changing the culture. We're nowhere near finished, by the way.
Okay.
We're on a journey. I've got a great leadership team around me, good young leadership team, which we're mentoring, coaching. But yeah, I'm excited about the future because it's a blank canvas for me. We're on our second record year, but we've still got lots to do, lots of growing, development to do, which I'm excited about. I don't want it to be the finished article.
And how about your team? How did they, when you sort of, because I mean, a traditional business, if you like, manufacturing business, traditional's not fair, but you know, a manufacturing business has been here a long time. Yeah. How have the people that are working for you embraced this sort of stuff that you're saying? Was it easy or did you get some pushback?
Pushback. Obviously, pushback, you change. You know, when I first started after the pandemic, JCB, I think, took a view of, let's have a reset. Let's let the older culture go if they want to retire. Let's bring a new leadership team, shop floor in. Bit of a reset, I think. That's what they were looking for. So that's what happened when managers started leaving. The machine shop manager left. I took over machine shop. Just said to the lads, you know, I'm here, work to help you. We worked through it. Same happened with Gearbox. I came over to Gearbox, helped out in Gearbox, and obviously then was asked to be the ops manager. And then you're seeing people thinking, you know, can he do this? And it was that fear factor. I suppose then when the general manager was asked to be general manager and the last general manager left, I think that first 6 months, again, about demonstrating. You have to demonstrate. Because there's a void being left by a leader. Good or bad, doesn't matter. They've gone, and that trust in that person's gone. So the new people are looking to you, and you're sat by that desk again, I've got to deliver. Yeah. And that's what it was all about, being present, over communicating, over coaching, you know, being in every meeting you can be in, you know, giving your view on everything you can as guidance. And then let them go, let them develop then. You know, you just got to keep prodding, poking. And you do need your superstars coming in. You know, I've got some great superstars, and from JCB have come in and they've made a difference. You do need that. It's like a football team, if you like. Like I said, you got your apprentices, you got your academy players coming in through the ranks, you got your old heads in the middle, and you got your superstars coming in from outside. You need that mix.
And bringing insights, I'm guessing, and fresh perspective.
Different lens on the world. Yeah. And you need that. When I took over this place, I can say the doors were that shut. It was unbelievable.
Okay.
You know, we had a factory on our car park virtually, 20 odd years, hadn't spoke to us. You know, and that's the first thing I was keen on, was blowing the doors off the place. You know, we cannot think we're the best at everything. So, you know, it's Airbus first, got Airbus here, and you're inviting people in, and people are like, well, we can come to JCB. And that was the feedback I was getting. It was this culture of, I don't know, smoke and mirrors. Yeah. I thought, no, we're not the best at everything. So another big change point for me was November 21, I think it was. We had a significant incident on the shop floor, and two lads messing about, best friends, and he tried to pick him up with a lifter as a joke, and he hurt him. Air ambulance come, police come, shut the factory. You know, I'm looking at a police camera thinking I'm going to jail for Christmas. Corporate manslaughter, all this stuff's going through your head, you know. And CID come checking all the paperwork, everything. We've done everything right, you know, brilliant job by my team. And then the lad obviously got escorted off sites, got arrested, and guy got flown off to hospital, but he was fine. With 3 or 4 weeks, he was back home, back in work within 4 months. But I thought, I'm going to have to tell people about this, because we tell people how to use equipment. I'd come from an engineering and mechanical background because my dad was a mechanic. I understand mechanics, hydraulics, pneumatics, I do. The next generation of person who hasn't got that dad or mum doesn't know this background. You know, hasn't been in a garage mucking about with cars all his young life. So though we tell people how to use them, we don't tell them what happens if they use it wrongly. You know, so we got a barrel full of water, and we used this lifter and crushed the barrel, took a video of it straight away, and it crushed the barrel. Well, I show that to everybody on site. Then so, right, what else can I do? So then I said, right, I need to tell other people in the estate. So I invited all the big factories around here, which look after 300-400 people plus, into our office, and I presented what happened. And they couldn't believe my honesty about what went wrong, and we're showing them what went wrong, not what we're good at, you know. We only show the good stuff. Yeah. And I said, no, I want people to learn from our mistake. That never happens in your factory. And people went away, and the emails and thank yous I got for the next week. And then I was onto something. I thought, I'm on to communicate it outside of this factory now. I'm on to casting a shadow outside of this factory. And I was thinking, this, you know, I don't know who runs Kellogg's. I don't know who's Networld. I don't know. Yeah. So I suddenly started, right, I'm going to create a leadership alliance. So we pulled this group of people together. I think it was about 6 or 7 at the start, and we're up to about 12 now. Right, how do we learn off each other? How do we make ourselves better? How do we support other businesses as big players on the industrial estate? And that's nearly 2 years old now. It's coming up to his 2nd year this December. And I think that's one of the things I'm most proud of, that, you know, we'll host people here, we'll host people in Very, Networld. You know, who'd have thought JCB would be good partners with Moneypenny? Yeah. And we learn off each other. Yeah. You know, who'd have thought that? Yeah. it's phenomenal. But again, we're back to talking about people, engaging people, learning off people. That to me is the magic dust. Is learning off people. Everyone's got a different skill set.
It's really interesting because I think, as you say, in a lot of places, if something went catastrophically wrong like that, or big issue, as you've mentioned, I think in a lot of firms or organisations, what they'll do is they'll sort of hush it up. Oh, it never happened. Let's just brush over it. So it's almost sort of paradoxical, if you like. You sort of took that and thought, no, I'm going to do almost the complete opposite of what most organisations would do, I guess, and feature it and make a point of it.
The big driver for me was, obviously I got a young family, and I was stood there thinking, I could be in jail for Christmas here.
Okay.
And none of my doing, just, people who work for you, because you are responsible, even though you're not part of that team. And if I don't want anyone feeling that, I don't want anyone feeling like I've just felt. And if I can avoid that and tell people, then people went back to all their working stations and communicated to their team, changed their risk assessments.
Yeah.
I showed them what can happen if things went wrong. So I might have saved God knows how many people. I might not have, I don't know, but I just felt it was the right thing to do, not to put something that I went through. It was a terrible thing to go through.
Yeah. So learn from your mistakes, perhaps, is what you're saying. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You touched on something there which I'd like to come on to next, which is family is important to you. You told a moving story about your own father, and I know that we are both football coaches. We've spoken about that, and we've got youngish families. Now it's interesting. We spoke about this on a recent podcast, that whenever we have a female guest on here, female leader, we always sort of ask them the question, oh, well, how do you manage your work-life balance? Which again sort of implies that it's a female issue, right? And we talk about these like unconscious bias, don't we, in work? And well, there is a clear example of one where we happily ask women, well, how you're a leader and how do you manage your home life or work life? Well, of course I should be asking you, and so I am going to ask you, because it's obviously something that affects male leaders, or should affect male leaders, as much as it affects female leaders, right? So I suppose what I'd like to ask you then is, you're extremely busy. You're here, you work very hard, but you also are very close to your family and have and put that as a priority. So how do you manage that sort of work-life balance as a leader?
I don't know. One of my PA asks me that every day. I don't know how to do it.
Okay.
I must have extra hours in the day. Obviously, you've got a great wife, great family to help out. Got a 5-year-old daughter that I think rules the house. But no, it's hard. It's getting a bit easier. My eldest is 14 now. So my daughter's 5, so things are getting easier. It's the football practice, it's the swimming, it's the dance class, it's all that. But yeah, I suppose you're not the priority at home, which is a nice thing, I think. Whereas you got all this control here and you're having to look after so many people here, and then you go home and you become the opposite person then. My wife's got a demanding job. She's in care, looks after abused and unfortunate children. So she's got a tough role, and I think that's one of the hardest challenges, when two of you in the household have got a good career, good strong career, and both driven. I think that's the hardest thing. Okay. Who's going to pick the kid up when they're not well? And I got busy. Oh, I'm busy. Yeah, totally. That's more of a challenge, but. Again, with the football side, where I started with rugby coaching, then went into the football coaching. I go back to working with my dad. My eldest son, good little footballer. But to have them moments though, driving to football, talking about football, analysing it, coming back, who's done good, who's done bad, and it's a fantastic time in my life. When I'm sat and I'm old and grey, hopefully, and reflect on them moments, makes everything worthwhile. Everything, them getting up November, putting the goals up, freezing wet, to have that moment and your son look at you when he scored a goal or whatever it is, them moments are precious.
And I share that with you, because I still think about, we go through the same thing. So with my football coaching, I agree with you, those moments with your kids are so precious. And you're right, I can't think about it too much, but when he scored his first goal for his football team, it sounds silly, but under 7 football, but it's an emotional time, you can't miss it.
No.
So it strikes me then that your view as a leader is, yes, work is important, but obviously there are other things in life that are more important.
I had a tough time. I say when I went through a tough time here and couldn't switch off, and the people around me were like, I was getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and it was a tough time. You couldn't switch off. You've got to learn to switch off. You've got to learn to switch off. That's hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but you've got to separate it. You've got to enjoy life, and the leaders around me tell me that as well, because they know how big this job is. Friends of mine saying, I don't know how you do it, 600 people, and how you sleep at night, but I think you've got to go through a bad time as well. I think resilience, that when you've gone through a tough time and you're raised from the ashes, I think as a leader you need to have them tough times. Okay. I think when a person once said to me, you got to graze your knees. Okay. I think you need, as a good leader, I think you have to, as again, it's empathy, I suppose. I've been the person who's been belittled. I've been the person who's been blamed for everything. I would never let that happen to my team. And again, it's them scars of the school bully, I suppose. You get hypersensitive to it. I think that makes you a better leader. When, say, unfortunately, I lost my brother, and, going through that process, understanding mental health, passionate about it now, how it affects people. Looking back at me 2 years ago, what was I going through? A new job, brother terminally ill, everything else in the world, tough, coming out of a pandemic, shortages. I don't know how I done it, but I think the resilience that's built up in me has made me definitely a better person, and I would say a better leader as well.
Thank you for being so honest. That's great, because it leads me on to something else I wanted to ask you about, which we've spoken before as well, which is around mental health, which you just touched on briefly. Because I think, I'm not saying it's a taboo subject, but I think it's something which over the last 10 years maybe has certainly become more and more important in business, and companies realizing the role that they play in people's lives. We spend more of our lives at work than at home, right? So I know that mental health is important to you, and all of that side of things. You're trying to a few strategies at JCB. So I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about that and what you've done on that side.
Yeah, so we started obviously coming through a tough time with my brother, and then I was listening to an audiobook. Why haven't they not told me this before? And it goes on about mental health and the basic things to look for in yourself, and meditation and stuff. And I was sat in the back garden, and we just finished for the shutdown, and I was already thinking about going back to work, how bad it's going to be, because we had parts, shortages, etc. I'm thinking, this is not good for people. You shouldn't have to be thinking like this. Just finished work. So I started looking into it, listened to this book, and I thought, I'm going to teach everybody on site, staff included, basic mental health training. So I made a few calls to a good few friends of mine. Julian Hughes was brilliant to me, local guy, again, businessman, great connections. Phoned him up, run these ideas past him, and he's got his own Papus, which is a mental health charity. So he said, I'm into that. So I said, listen, I want to train up everyone on site to do mental health training. So he said, we'll set something up. So in the third week of the shutdown here, we had a guy on site, Sean Liddell, who's a mental health trainer. Okay. He's been through some tough times himself. So again, speaking with empathy and been through it. And he came on site and taught everybody on site about mental health awareness, training, basic, what to look for, how to address it. And we helped, we had people in this room from after the meetings coming here, at least 6 people who've helped change their lives. Well, they've come and put their hand up in front of us, not the ones who haven't. I remember a guy stopping me in the garage when I went to get some petrol. It was around Christmas time. I thought, he said, thank you for the elf. I said, but you're talking about an elf. I said, well, what did you say? He goes, thank you very much for the mental health training. Right. We were struggling at home. My dad's got dementia. We were tearing our family apart, but, Sean helped him go to a first session, and life-changing. So, building on that there, it's not just about work, as in work. If you can keep your workforce happy and healthy, they're going to be here more. They're going to be more productive. You're not going to have absences. So this year, how can we build on it? So again, like I said before, learning about financial stuff, that's opened the door to me, new world. So I thought, again, why didn't I know that when I was on the shop floor about all this kind of stuff? So again, Ben Gittins, a local guy who I've met, financial advisor, I asked him to come in this year, and he's delivered training to all the shop floor and staff about different age groups, 18 to 20, 20 to 40, and 40 to 60, because of different times of their life financially. And the feedback we've had off the shop floor is phenomenal. you know, it's just again about the well-being, health and well-being of your team.
Yeah.
So I don't know what I'm going to do next year, like, but
Set the bar high now.
yeah. Well, the next thing for me is, you know, alcohol, drug abuse. I know that's bad in men's health because that's our biggest demographic here, and gambling as well. I think is a big one. So them's the next two big ones for
How
me.
about fitness? Do you, I know you mentioned you've got a rugby team and that kind of
So yeah, so just going into the community, and you know, there's a lot of young men and females here that want to do sport, and obviously it brings people together, sport. So yeah, we did Axles versus Gearbox.
Okay.
Then we did Wrexham versus Wrexham rugby, Transmissions, and now the girls are after their netball team now. So
Okay, great.
So it's yeah, you can't enforce sport on people as in fitness, but I think if you've got something just to talk about, so it's the banter. It's the, you know, Rex, who's going to win Gearbox or Axel. There's a trophy in the reception in Axel because Axel won the football match. Now Gearbox want to win it back. So it's that banter again, which is good for mental health.
Culture again as well.
Yeah, it's culture.
It's really interesting, and I think what's refreshing to me listening to you speak is that, you know, you might come into a large business like this and think, oh, I'm going to be meeting the general manager and it's going to be very old school, and you know, you don't quite know what to expect. But I remember when I first met you, what's so refreshing is that, and I really get this sense talking to you, is that you appreciate that, yes, you've got employees that work for you, but they have a life outside of work that you can also help and play a role in.
And I'm part of the team. You know, they don't work for me. We're part of the same team. That's a big difference for me. You know, when I rocked out last week on that rugby pitch, and half of the young lads don't really know me because they're new to the business. They're thinking, what's he doing here?
Okay.
I'm playing, mate. And they were like, what?
Did you find that when you play against some people that they tackle you a little bit harder because you're the...
No, at that time we were on the same team, but it was just, I just laughed because, you know, a lot of the people who have been here a long time know me, so they know what I'm about, and a few of the young guys don't. Just to see them, me putting my boots on or going on the pitch and having a good game of rugby, I think hopefully was refreshing for them. But yeah, it was funny to see their face.
Yeah, fair. But it's so positive to hear you speak about those things, and I think I've got a couple more questions, and I suppose one of them, which is sort of led on from this, is that you are, you know, you embrace the team and you try and sort of go to the shop floor and have the conversations with the people, but I'm guessing that equally as a leader, you've had to have some difficult conversations with people.
Yeah.
And I was talking to someone recently who said, you know, that was one of their powers, was, if you like, as a leader, was that they were able to have difficult conversations with people, whereas some people shy away from it. You know, they became a leader and they realised they couldn't be everyone's best friend, if you like. So how have you approached that?
Generally, what you find is whenever I was involved, I was called out to headquarters yesterday to deal with a situation. But what you generally find is if something's gone wrong, they've either put themselves in that position, and generally people will understand, yeah, I made a mistake there, or sometimes someone's behaviour is not right. But generally, people, when you pull them up, will go, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, okay. Very rare that you'll get, no, I am okay to do that. I'm okay to behave that way. You know, I've had my team pull me up.
Okay.
So it's, you know, that's one great example where, you know, I was in school with one lady who still works here, and we have a bit of banter, it was, as you call it then. And I said something a bit funny to her, as we've always said every morning to each other. And another female phoned me up and said, I don't think that was right, that you should be saying that in your position. I said, okay, I appreciate you telling me, because we've just been friends all our lives. So, and I've learned and changed. So you have to change and adapt with the role as well. Yeah. You know, but I welcome criticism. Like when people come on site, I welcome them to go more from the site and tell me how we can improve. So yeah, having them difficult conversations need to be had. Bad leaders need to be spoke to, mentored, coached, or because you leave a bad apple, it's going to turn everybody. And if people are left to behave badly, your good leaders will disrespect you, because then people need pulling up. Otherwise, what's the point of having good leadership when you're allowing bad leadership to happen? Yeah. So you do have to deal with the bad leadership to keep the good leadership going. Yeah, that's very interesting. I totally agree with that. So one of the things that you've just led on there, which is interesting, is about this idea of coaching and mentoring. And you've spoken about, you know, through our conversation, about embracing that and being an open book and always learning.
So I'm interested to get your views on coaching and mentoring in business and what role you think that plays.
It's everything to me. I like to coach, mentor. I like to see people growing. And by that, it's again, you're back to the football thing. You're a manager on the side of the pitch. So in the week, you do all your training, prepping for the game. Then when the game time comes, they're on the pitch. They do 90% of yourself. You do your nudging, you do your mark him, pick him up from the sideline. But it's up to them then. You've got to let them play. So I like to use that analogy. In the week is when the training and mentoring going, and then you let them play. You let them run the business themselves. And as they learn and growing, you're going to make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. You just learn and grow from it. And one of the big things I notice is a bit of a eureka moment. We do 3-month reviews, but I like to check in every week with the managers. How are you doing? How am I doing? This is a two-way thing. And I got an ops manager and a senior manager. And the ops manager, obviously, if my role comes available, that's one of the first people who gets it, looks at it. But there's many people on the side where maybe could go for it. And one of the other senior managers in one of my reviews said, I'm going to go for your job when you decide to go. I said, I'm not going anywhere, but and it took a while to sink in. So I was at home that night because I do a lot of reflecting, and that's huge to reflect. You need to reflect on everything. And I thought, I broke a glass ceiling here, because before this office was out of bounds. Nobody on the shop floor got in this office. Nobody from, had to be helicoptered in. You had to be a special person to be a general manager. Now I've got a guy that's very similar pathway to me, come off the shop floor, is now saying, I'm going to go for your job. I feel empowered enough that I can do your job. Now I think I've set that path. I've broke that ceiling of going, yeah, you can do it. You can do it. You don't have to be a superstar, NBA star. You can come in here and be a good person, a good, solid, rounded person, and do a fantastic job. And that made me happier than anything, that I've got people putting their hands up now to go, yeah, I'll have a go at that. Mm-hmm. Which that's never been here before. Yeah. So that was another thing about coaching and mentor. I've opened them gates now.
Do you see it as a positive thing, that's the environment that you've created here? Absolutely. That people want your job in it?
Yeah,
that's unusual. I
need somebody to push me up this job. I need somebody to go there and push me to my next job.
Okay.
As much as I love it here, my legacy is I've got a big piece of land we own there. I want to put a factory there. I want to give another 100 odd jobs to people locally. That's my legacy. I want to walk out of here one day and go, we did a fantastic job.
One of my final questions was going to be, we talked about the book Legacy by James Kerr, and how some of the learnings from that are great, and clearly I can see where it's impacted you. So what will Craig Weeks' legacy be, do you think, here? What do you want it to be?
So my legacy, my vision for this business is you walk into a good, clean, cultured factory working environments where people are happy. We've created jobs, we've created efficiencies, and we're the jewel in JCB's crown. Mm-hmm. I believe that we're well on the way to that now. I believe with the engagements I've had with the seniors in the team. I've got Lord Bamford asking me for tickets to come watch Wrexham. Who'd have thought that? Yeah, that would be happening. Yeah. It's about that the legacy. We put Wrexham back on the map. Mm-hmm. Because they did go off the map, I believe. I think we've put it back on the map. And if I can create jobs and develop and grow people by going to schools and apprenticeships, that would be a happy Craig Weeks walking from here. Mm-hmm. And management training programs and stuff like that? Yeah, so I'm mentoring, obviously, all the time. Succession planning. Every manager's got a succession plan. If my role does take me from here one day, I would love to look back and say, beating my records. Mm-hmm. I want my records to be beaten. Mm-hmm. I want this place to develop and grow. It's all about the local community. How can we make it better for the local people as well? Mm-hmm. But we will be the jewel in the JCB crown. I love that. It's interesting that the bits that seem to, coming back to legacy, it sort of links to those ideas of plant trees that you'll never see. Yeah. Is that about right? Yeah. And sort of leaving the shirt in a better place. Yeah. I know you've already mentioned you're big into rugby, and that strikes me that's basically what you're aiming for here. Is that right? I've got one final question before I ask you the uncommon sense question, which we ask everybody. But you mentioned earlier about it used to be a very male-dominated workforce, and you touched on it earlier about the fact that you have more females working in the business. So again, in times of hardship, and you look for answers, and we're struggling to get good people through the door. And a friend of mine, that was after forklift drivers, a friend of mine said, I've got a great girl here that's just come out. She used to work in a betting shop, and she's got a truck license now, and she wanted to give it a go. So yeah, no problem. I interviewed her, met her, as quiet as a mouse. I thought, you're going to last 2 minutes here. Anyway, 3 or 4 weeks went by, and I went down to the shop floor, and I walked past, and she was on shift, and she was driving towards me. And again, that's something in your stomach turns where you've made that happen. You've made that happen, the first female on the shop floor. Brilliant. And you stop and talk to the lads. She's brilliant. Best one we've got, and all that good stuff. So then, I've got to push this. So then trying to advertise for just women is the hard thing, because you can't do that now. So it's hard to encourage girls. So when we go to schools, we try to encourage girls to come in here. We invite schools on site to bring females in. And then it's just talking to the people on site. Have you got any daughters? Have you got any friends? So we eventually started building this workforce up with cousins and aunties, and all this started to come to work here. I think we're up to 28 females on the shop floor now. And I've met one of the girls who's the daughter of one of the workers, and she looked petrified. So I went up and said, "Are you okay?" She was, "Yeah, I'm fine. Just come out of college, never been in a working environment like this before. 90% men, scared to death." So I was reflecting that night again. I thought, I've got to do something here to help these girls, these women, induct themselves properly into this business. So I come up with a women's forum. Mm-hmm. So then what we did then was we got all the girls, staff, women as well, into a room, and we said, right, floor's open. How can I make this a better factory for women? Because I don't know, I'm not a woman. And it was a bit quiet at first. Then when the first question come and brilliant, the room lit up then, we don't like walking out in the morning when it's dark and all this stuff, and we need more showers and changing room facilities, and so yeah, and about shift patterns and maternity care and none of these stuff that the men know about, because they don't need to know about it. So, and if you come into this business as a woman, if you're a lad, you just go up to somebody, I may as well start shift pattern about it, and they'll tell you, but a girl's not going to do that. Mm-hmm. So all them great little nuggets come on, we knock them down one by one. And now we're to a point where when we have this women's forum, we invite guest people in. So we try and get senior women to come in and talk about their experiences. So we were lucky enough to have JCB just taking a lady on now from America. Mm-hmm. She worked in France. She's done a lot of good work. She's quite senior. So she come in, and it's very similar to this. We sat in front of the room and we just asked her questions, and she gave us advice and what the women, and I'm trying to promote the women through the business. I haven't got a woman on the senior leadership team. I want one. I want 3, 4. Mm-hmm. So it's all about pushing that next level, and the feedback off the shop floor and the dynamics are brilliant. One of the interesting things came out of one of the meetings which shocked me. One of them said, we have to do more. What do you mean? She goes, we have to do more. I said, yeah, you've lost me here. So when the lads worked and they're having 5 minutes, we'll pick a brush up or we'll carry on working or do something. So why? He said, because we have to prove ourselves. I said, why? He said, there's nothing that JCB's done or anything that the lads have done. It's just in us because we're the minority, if you like. We have to prove ourselves. Now, when that's going to change, God knows, but I suppose it's going to take a few years. Mm-hmm. But we're well on that journey now. But the hardest thing is, that's why we're engaging the schools a lot. Okay. Is to get the females through the door is the hard bit. Because they get steered to a certain profession, and we got, that's why I keep bragging about this place. You can be a financial person, you can be in quality, you can be in operations, you can be in machine shop. There's endless avenues in this business, and that's why I'm in the community trying to sell it. You can have a great career here. You can take it all around the world. I was lucky enough to go to India. Blew my mind. Yep. The size of this place in India, phenomenal. Mm-hmm. It's opportunities, and we're here in Wrexham.
Well, it's interesting because you talked about breaking the glass ceiling from you becoming, shop floor to general manager. And it strikes me that the story you've just told is of the lady going to work on the shop floor.
Yes, absolutely.
She smashed that glass ceiling.
Absolutely, yeah.
And now she's smashed it. Yeah. What you're saying is you're going to do everything you can to make sure, I don't know, not that the glass is going to close over, but, make sure that that's it now.
So I've just pinched a girl from design and put it into quality. I want her to be my next quality manager, and she's loving it. She's loving life. Different lens. Brilliance. Diversity is the answer.
It's so refreshing, and a lot, a lot of the stuff we've spoken about in this conversation, which has just been everything I'd hoped it would be, if I'm honest. It's been refreshing and a bit different and a new perspective. we always ask our guests on this podcast the same final question, which is, based on their career and what they've been through and as leaders, if they're, what their biggest piece of advice would be that they would share with other business leaders or people who are becoming leaders, which is maybe a bit uncommon or something that you wouldn't just read in a textbook. What would you say yours is?
I would say have a good boardroom, a virtual boardroom, and that's make sure you got people in that boardroom from different factories, different environments, different lenses on the world. Don't think that your business is the best, because there'll always be somebody you can learn from, whether it's Moneypenny, whether it's Networld, whether it's B&Q. There'll be a process there that you can pick up from and they can learn from you. It's a crying shame if you're always looking inward. And I think that's been the biggest difference from up here. We've blown the doors open, we've got schools coming in, we're going to every different kind of business. We're talking to small businesses, big businesses. Make sure you have a different lens on the world, would be my advice.
It's brilliant advice, and thank you so much for sharing it. This has been a really, really interesting conversation. I think anyone who works in Wrexham and like the Uncommon Practice based on Wrexham Industrial Estate, we see JCB and we see the flags, and it's a major, major player in our region, nationally, internationally. And it's just been so interesting to get the insight from you as to how you're operating. I really hope our listeners will take a lot away from everything that you've said about culture, about values, about instilling excellence. The highlights for me about, casting a shadow, leaders set the tone.
It's all about people.
All about people.
It's all about people.
And I think the other thing, what's been so great is hearing your story. And thank you for being so honest with us, how you came from, the shop floor, working with your dad, and then working right to the top at JCB here. It's been really great. And I think the thing I would say to you is it's an inspiring story. And I really appreciate you sharing it. And I can see why your dad was so proud, of you and of the work that you've done, because it's a great story and it's a great business. And thanks for joining us on Uncommon Sense. It's been great.
No, it's been a pleasure meeting you and the team as well. It's great to see like-minded people, and that's what I get from people. When you like-minded people come together, we can make a difference. We can make a difference.
Brilliant. Thanks, Greg.
And there will be a part 2.
Well, part 2, yeah, great.
There will be a part 2.
Really great. Look out for part 2. Cheers, everybody.
Thanks, guys.